I knew I was going to be dealing with tensions. Some of these, of the period, some of them created by historians who look back on the period who have made both good and bad decisions about how to interpret the past. So let me just mention some of the tensions. So the very first tension that I had to deal with was the church exclusive or inclusive. And there's a very, very long tradition of dumping on the Congregationalists who came over here in the 1630s because they were exclusivists in their thinking. And there's a very great British historian who actually died back in October, Patrick Collinson, who quoted Thomas Shepard saying, he quoted Thomas Shepard saying, only 1 out of 1,000 is really a good saint, and therefore we have to be very, very, very rigorous. He was actually thinking of Shepard in his English career. The quote is actually, it's not a very, you can't improve on the quote that much, it's 1 out of 100. But I realized that Shepard was presenting a hypothetical. It's entirely a hypothetical statement. It's not, there will only be 1 out of 100 saved. It's this, if you don't listen to the word, you might be among the 99. That's the hypothetical. So, but I cite that as simply an example of the very easy possibility to misunderstand. Because here is Shepard saying, we don't want to pollute the Lord's Supper. Oh, we're so glad we've got away from all that pollution of the Lord's Supper when the indiscriminate multitude can come. Henry Dunster, presenting his relation to the church, says there must be a separation between the profane and the saved. But it sounds pretty scary, right? So that was a tension right at the beginning of my project. Was there or was there not this very, very rigid, tight practice of membership? And then what would have been, what could have been the repercussions from it? I mean, that's really the question. You can have a practice. You know, you can belong to something that's exclusive. We probably all do, but in some way or another. But then the question is, what are the repercussions of that? Is it a quiet thing, a visible thing, a kind of in-your-face thing or not? And I have to say that in principle, this religious membership thing was kind of an in-your-face thing because there the church was, after all, right there in the center of the town. And the second question was land distribution. And I had already written a chapter, earlier chapter 2 of this book, deals at length with land distribution. And this is really the hot button issue for everybody in New England because everybody needs land, all families need land in order to have be economically viable. And there are no rules. You know, in 1630 there are no rules whatsoever. They have to make up their rules, what they're going to be for distributing the land. And this starts with the Massachusetts Bay Company, which technically sort of has a kind of access to the land. But the Bay Company founders make a very, very wise decision. They create these towns and they say, okay, here's 5,000 acres, 10,000, well, whatever. Here's a huge chunk of land. You guys figure it out how to distribute the land. And it's worth actually, for those of you who are interested in early American history, it's worth returning to the chapter 2, because again, there's an interpretation here that I'm disputing very, very sharply, which is that there were an elitist, mean sons of bitches who controlled land distribution and said, we're going to take most of it and leave it to come to the rest of you. That is absolutely not the case. That is absolutely not the case. And what I try to dramatize in chapter 2 and then re-dramatize in chapter 5 is the ethics that drove this practice. Now, class or hierarchy does come into play. That's absolutely the case. But it's driven also by a tremendous sense of fairness, or what I describe as equity, so that everybody gets something. Actually, basically everybody gets enough, and then some get more than enough. So, but this is a tension in every town. By the way, particular tension here in Boston, where unfortunately the merchants decided, in fact, to screw the poor people, and then there was a kind of revolt and so forth and so on in the 1630s. So you do have occasional cases of severe disjunction. Other towns quite egalitarian. Cambridge is a little bit in the middle. So those are two tensions that ripple through my book. And then the question is, were they connected? Could they be connected? In other words, did church members, as a kind of spiritual elite, luck out in land distribution? Yeah.
Well, the differences between what happened in Boston and what happened in Ipswich or one of the other towns where it did work out very accurately.